In 1940, the world's most dangerous object wasn't a weapon. It was 26 cans of deceptively ordinary water. This heavy water was the only supply on Earth, and it held the key to building an atomic bomb. As Nazi armies marched on Paris, physicist Frédéric Joliot-Curie knew he had to get it out. But how? The city was descending into chaos. Every road was watched, every port a potential trap for his team. The only option was a desperate gamble. An escape mission, orchestrated in the shadows of a falling nation. He couldn't destroy it. That would waste years of research. He couldn't let them capture it either. They gathered the canisters under the cover of darkness. Every sound was magnified, every footstep a threat. The mission was simple and impossible. Smuggle 185 kilograms of heavy water out of France. But where did this strange water even come from? The answer lay far to the north, in occupied Norway. A secret agent named Jacques Allier arrived. He was their guide, their protector, their only hope for success. Allier had secured this supply just before the invasion. Now he had to save it a second time. There, the Vemork hydroelectric plant produced it as a byproduct. A scientific curiosity turned strategic treasure. The stakes were absolute. If Hitler's scientists got this water, they could build a bomb and win the war. The risk was the team's capture and death. The reward was keeping hope alive for the entire world. Their escape route was a winding path south, towards the port of Bordeaux. Every mile was a risk. They traveled by car, hiding the precious cargo under ordinary luggage, praying they wouldn't be stopped and searched. German patrols were everywhere. A single curious soldier could doom the entire Allied war effort right there. But luck held. They reached Bordeaux as the French government was collapsing. It was a city of pure panic. They secretly loaded the canisters aboard at midnight. They were disguised as ordinary industrial chemicals. But a German spy on the docks saw the transfer. He alerted his superiors, and the hunt was on. As the Broompark sailed, German bombers took to the skies, specifically ordered to find and sink the ship. The ship's captain, Charles Howard, knew nothing of his special cargo, only that he had to reach England. Allier had arranged passage on a British coal ship, the SS Broompark. Not a warship, but a humble tramp steamer. Before sailing, they made a pact. If the ship was hit, they would ensure the canisters sank. The planes appeared on the horizon. The tiny ship was defenseless against the bombers circling overhead. The scientists Hans von Halban and Lew Kowarski watched the skies, knowing the fate of the world rested below deck. Yet somehow, through luck and skilled maneuvering, the Broompark evaded every attack. A miraculous escape. It arrived safely in England. The heavy water was secure, but the source of it was not. The first problem was solved, but a greater one emerged. The Nazis now controlled the Vemork plant in Norway. They could produce their own heavy water. The Allies had only bought themselves a little time. A new mission was planned, this one far more daring. They couldn't steal the water. They had to destroy the factory. The plant was a fortress, perched on a cliff edge in a deep gorge. A frontal assault was impossible. The first attempt, Operation Freshman, was a disaster. British gliders crashed, and the survivors were executed. This was Operation Gunnerside. They would parachute into the wilderness and approach the plant on skis during winter. Their leader was the young and brilliant Joachim Ronneberg. He knew this terrain better than anyone. The Germans believed the gorge was impassable. Ronneberg and his team decided that was their way in. Failure was not an option. A small team of Norwegian commandos trained in Britain would try next. On a freezing night in February 1943, they began their descent. Silently, carefully, into the lion's den. They crossed the frozen river at the bottom and started climbing towards the heavily guarded factory. They found an entry point, a small cable duct leading directly into the heart of the production facility. 2 men squeezed inside. They moved past sleeping guards, carrying explosives to destroy the heavy water cells. The explosion was muffled, not loud. Just a dull thud that destroyed the priceless equipment and release the heavy water. They set short, 30-second fuses. Just enough time to get out, but not enough to be caught. The team escaped back into the mountains just as the alarms began to shriek. The first phase was a success. They left a British submachine gun behind. A deliberate act to make the Germans think it was a British raid. This was to protect the local Norwegian population from brutal German reprisals. A clever, compassionate strategy. The Commandos skied for 15 days across 250 miles to reach the safety of neutral Sweden. The Allies responded with a massive bombing raid. But the plant's location made it incredibly difficult to hit. But the story was not over. The resourceful Germans began rebuilding the facility almost immediately. While the plant was damaged, it wasn't destroyed. And tragically, many Norwegian civilians were killed in the raid. The Germans made a final, desperate decision. They would ship all remaining heavy water stock to Germany. This presented one last chance for the Norwegian resistance. A final, decisive act of sabotage was needed. The shipment would travel by train, then onto a ferry called the SF Hydro to cross a deep lake. This was a heartbreaking decision. The ferry carried civilian passengers. It was a terrible moral compromise. The target was the ferry. The plan was to sink it in the deepest part of the lake, but letting the shipment reach Germany was unthinkable. 3 saboteurs snuck aboard the night before it sailed. They planted a time bomb in the ship's bow, calculated to detonate when it was over the lake's abyss. The next morning, the ferry left the dock. The saboteurs watched from the shore, their hearts heavy. At 10:45 a.m., the bomb exploded. The ferry sank within minutes, taking the heavy water with it. The canisters settled at the bottom of Lake Tin, over 400 meters deep, beyond recovery. 14 Norwegian civilians and 4 German soldiers died. A heavy price for preventing a greater catastrophe. The German atomic bomb program was crippled. This final, tragic act had permanently ended the threat. It was a victory won not by armies, but by scientists, spies, and a few incredibly brave commandos. But how certain were historians of this story's impact? The evidence lay dormant for decades on the lake floor. They found a barrel. Inside, the heavy water was tested, and its concentration confirmed the stories. The legend was true. The mission had succeeded precisely as the resistance had planned and hoped. This series of covert operations represents one of the most successful sabotage campaigns in all of history. The grand design was not a single heist, but a relentless, multi-year campaign of incredible ingenuity and bravery. In 2004, a recovery team used a remote submarine to explore the wreckage of the SF Hydro. From a Parisian lab to a Norwegian lakebed, each act denied the enemy the tools of ultimate destruction. Historians agree this sabotage set the German nuclear program back by years, perhaps decisively. It ensured that the war in Europe would be fought with conventional weapons, not atomic fire. After the war, the heroes of the mission returned to quiet lives. Their story largely unknown for many years. The recovered barrel is now a museum piece, a simple object that represents a monumental turning point in history. The echo of this mission is a powerful lesson. It shows how a few determined people can alter history. Their courage prevented a terrible weapon from falling into the most evil hands. A debt we can never repay. Every stone carries a story. And the story of this water reminds us of the power of resistance. Joachim Ronneberg became a celebrated hero in Norway, but always stressed the teamwork involved in the raid. There are countless other hidden chapters of history waiting to be uncovered, each with its own incredible heroes. Their courage wrote a chapter of history. Now, help choose which hidden story we will chronicle next.